To stay-at-home cocktails. Today we are at UrbanCHEF, which is in Houston, Texas, and this is Cara Gafford. She's the owner of UrbanCHEF. Can you tell us about UrbanCHEF?
Sure. What we do is hands-on cooking classes. You come, you make a whole meal, and you can have a glass of wine while you're cooking. Go sit down and enjoy yourself.
And they have some good wines and good beer.
Yes.
So
what we don't do is cocktails. So that's why we're doing it today.
So we're helping out with that. So today we're going to make the Ward 8, which the Ward 8 is a very classic cocktail. Dates back to 1898, and it's named after a ward in Boston, the Ward 8, which it was invented at a bar there in that ward. So this cocktail can use either rye or bourbon. We're going to use bourbon, and then it uses orange juice, lemon juice, and some grenadine. So let's go ahead and make the cocktail. So we're going to be using an orange twist for this, and so Cara had an idea about what to do with that.
Okay, so just thinking ahead, a lot of times when we're getting to garnish, it's the last thing we think about, and then we have to go back and do a garnish. But if you're going to be juicing your juice, your lemons or limes, or in this case orange, after you've juiced it, it's kind of flat and hard to work with. Best thing to do is grab your zest now while it's still whole. And we're going to just use a paring knife to do this. There, on the outside part of your citrus, that orange part has got a lot of great orange flavor without juice. So that's one of the reasons why a lot of recipes call for zest. But the inside is pith. It's got a lot of bitterness in there, which is a lot of times when you're asking to just get the zest, you don't want any of the pith. In this case, we're doing a twist. It's okay to have the pith in there. So get a nice, good, thick piece to work with. So that's the first thing we need to do. All right?
Now, if you are going to do it where you do an entire twist, you get the whole spiral out of it, if you're using a channel knife, you would actually want to use a separate orange for it, because you would want to do it over the drink, because every time you move the knife, it's going to spritz more oil.
Right.
But because we're just doing a fat twist
at the end, we're good.
Yeah,
all right.
That's good.
So, and we also need some juice.
So let's put our bourbon in first. We're going to do 2 ounces of bourbon, and we're going to do this in our mixing glass. So 2 ounces of the bourbon, and this is Larceny bourbon. It's become my new standard bourbon for mixing. It's good on its own as well.
Can you tell us about the flavor?
It's a little spicier than a traditional bourbon. It still has the sweetness of bourbon, like a Maker's Mark, but it actually has more tingle. I believe because it must use more rye.
Okay.
So 2 ounces of bourbon, and now we're going to want 3/4 ounce of both lemon and orange.
Okay. So I'm going to pour fruit first.
So you can squeeze it into here, okay, and then we can measure it. And you definitely want to use fresh juice for this. That's for any cocktail. Don't use a bottle of juice, unless you go to a store that sells fresh juices. So 3/4 of an ounce of lemon. No, other side. Okay. And now we want more orange. And this, tell us about why you're doing that.
This starts to break a lot of those tiny little cells in your fruit, so that it's already starting to get juice going in them. It's a lot easier to get the maximum amount of juice out of your squeeze.
You have to cut it again.
Yeah, this is pretty big. So they have, any juicer will work, but I really like working with these. You kind of get maximum amount of pressure going on this to get more juice out. We've almost got 3/4. It's easier to start more.
Okay, so now 3/4 of orange juice. And then we're gonna put Grenadine, and Grenadine is weird. Do you know what this stuff is?
It's basically a simple syrup that has pomegranate juice in there.
Well, that's what it's supposed to be. You look at this, it's just high fructose corn syrup, okay?
But it's got red color.
That's right. So this calls for a 1/4 ounce of this stuff. I don't like to put that much, okay, because I think this stuff is nasty. So I just like to put a little bit just for color. So maybe an 1/8, just a dash. Just to give it some pink color, because it's a Ward 8, it's supposed to be pink. It does add some sugar too. So there's our Ward 8, and because, as I've said in other videos, because this has fruit juice, we're actually going to shake this one. So if we can fill that up with ice, actually fill it up. In shaker.
All right, proper shaking technique here.
Wow. So, here's our finished cocktail. We're gonna strain this into a glass and then garnish it.
So have that. Let's get a little squeeze. We're gonna do the rim. All right, we're gonna do a little bit of the rim here.
And this cocktail is not that boozy. Yeah, just drop it in. All right, now try it. It's not very boozy. It's got about the same amount of fruit juice as it does liquor. So, but it's fruity. It's sweet.
It's drinkable. Very drinkable.
It's definitely drinkable.
Not that sour note. Not that sweet, but it's got some sweetness to it. I think if it had the full amount of Grenadine, you definitely say it's more assertively sweet. This tastes a little bit more like a grown-up drink than
a Shirley Temple.
Than a Shirley Temple. So.
Yeah, and the fresh juices give it a lot more complexity as well. So that's the Ward 8. I'm gonna try it as well.
All right.
And this is actually one of when I first got into making cocktails and looking at classic cocktails, this is one of the first ones I made. And so I realized how good it was and started doing some more.
Right.
So the Ward 8, it's bourbon or rye with lemon, orange, and a little Grenadine. Cheers.
Cheers.